So move.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Or any discussion, I should say? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Approve the minutes, for October 4th planning and zoning meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes from October 4th.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a public hearing. Comp plan amendment changing the future land use designation on the future land use map of property at 209 2nd Street Northwest and on property fronting Blue Jay Avenue from medium density residential to public and quasi-public. So we should open up the public hearing.
Yeah, I'll just go through this, and if you look at the agenda, there's actually 3 public hearings and a site plan review, and they're all related to the same item. The Zion Lutheran School is looking to do an expansion. As part of that, you'd have a site plan review. We'd have the comprehensive plan amendment, which would be changing the single-family house to the west of the school, since that's going to be torn down and combined with the main parcel. We're also going to, there's a small parking lot parcel south of the parking lot by the church there. We're going to also do that with the comprehensive plan amendment. And then a rezoning as well and a variance for off-street parking. So I'm going to kind of talk through this whole thing here at one time since they're all kind of related. So to start with, the Zion Lutheran Church and School is requesting these 4 agenda items to allow for an expansion of their school. It's basically a 3 classroom expansion kind of up on the north and west, or I should say west side of the building there. There's an existing single-family lot. That house is proposed to be torn down. Those parcels will be combined, and the new structure will kind of overlap onto that new parcel as part of that process. So that's kind of the overall gist of it. Just kind of give you some background. In 2012, the area that's kind of the white portion, can you pull that down to get the whole, like zoom down the, just pull it, no. Yeah, just slide it down, yeah,
How's that?
yeah.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
I was wondering what county that was in.
I swear I'm good with technology.
There you go. So the white portion of the building, that was an expansion that was done in 2012. At that time, there was 2 variances that were requested, and they did a site plan review. The one variance was the setback to Blue Jay Avenue or County Road 23 on the east side. The other one was to reduce the off-street parking. The off-street parking will be discussed tonight as part of that variance that they're requesting as well. At that time, off-street parking was looked at, and I'll get that into that a little bit and kind of go through some of the details. To start with, the property right now is guided for public and quasi-public for the whole school property. The single-family home, and then there's a parcel down on the south side there are guided for medium-density residential. And because mayor's in Carver County, which is part of the 7-county metropolitan area, we got to go through the Met Council on any comp plan amendment review. So I have been talking to them as well about this. And by guiding this, there's no major issues there. They've already kind of talked to me about it. Should be no big thing from them, but we got to go through the official process. We've also, because there's a county road adjacent to it, we had to submit to them. We did receive some comments back from the county, and that would satisfy the county review on that. So that's the comprehensive plan amendment, and that will just make this whole property so there's no conflicts with different guidings or anything like that. The second public hearing, which is the rezoning, kind of falls in the same thing. The single-family home in that parcel to the south are guided R1 low-density residential. The school and church itself are zoned, I should say, public institutional. So we'll be rezoning the R1 parcels to the public institutional so everything's consistent. And then the variance itself is for off-street parking. The previous variance that was done in 2012, it was proposed that 67 stalls were needed. There were 4 off-street parking stalls down the south side where that existing shed is. So there was some off-street parking there that was allowed for. So there's 4 stalls. So the city approved the variance of 63 stalls. This new addition does require 1 additional stall per classroom since there's 3 classrooms being proposed. That would mean there's 70 stalls required. And at this point, there's no additional off-street parking being proposed. Previously, that single-family home was not part of the property, and now since the building's going to expand over that line that's being combined, it is. And with that house being removed, there's actually, some area that could possibly be used as parking down there on Second Street or whatever. Previously, the area up to the north there is used as ball fields and things like that, and playground area. So nothing was done at that point as far as bringing parking in there. So that'll be something to talk about when the variance is a big one, since they're asking for a variance of 3 more off-street parking stalls. As far as adjacent uses, obviously there's single-family homes to the south, kind of southwest, twin homes further west in the Sunset Meadows. The city owns the property is directly to the east and to the north of this property. And it is kind of adjacent to, an older part of the downtown area. Since the property is 2 separate parcels and a third one down to the south, a lot combination will be needed to combine that single-family parcel where the house is being removed. I know the applicants have been talking with the county about doing a combination down there. I don't know the status of that, but before any construction could take place, that will have to be officially combined. If the county does not allow these parcels to be combined through a simple combination, which can happen due to different platting things, I think they're going to be okay with it from what I understand. Then a preliminary and final plat would be needed to actually plat this into a new lot at that point. The site plan review is, it does not require a public hearing, but a site plan review is required for any, public or commercial industrial type building or every townhome or, multifamily structure. So in this case, in your report on pages 4 and 5, it talks about the different things that you can look at. This can include building exterior materials. It can include potentially some landscaping. Parking comes into play there, all different things like that. Ponding, stuff like that also needs to be looked at. So those are things that can be adjusted, and one of the things that has been discussed at the staff level, on Second Street Northwest on the south property line, there's sidewalk that comes across the one parcel and goes into the single family parcel, maybe 30 feet, something like that, about extending that to the west property line. There is sidewalk on Second over in Sunset Meadows that stops coming to the east. So the only gap would be those 2 additional single family houses between this property and the Sunset Meadows plat. So long term, it would be thought that that sidewalk would be connected at some point in time. It's about 160 additional feet. And then you'd have a connection from Sunset Meadows back down Second all the way into the older part of Mayor there. So that sidewalk, talking with Bolton Mink City Engineer, that's something that have to be looked at about maybe wrapping that down along behind the curb line there. I know there's some power poles that have to be looked out for and where that exactly goes. A couple other things that would be talked about down there is there's a close-up of it. You can kind of see that sidewalk coming across and then stopping. Right-of-way dedication. If you look over in Sunset Meadows, or if you look the Second over to the east, it's actually wider, and there's this insufficient amount of right-of-way here. So the city engineer had said they would like to get dedication through the form of right-of-way easement to match the Sunset Meadows plat. It's about a 5-foot jog there, so it'd take about 5 feet. That would not be enough to cover the existing sidewalks. You can see there's off-street parking where cars come in at a perpendicular angle and park to the south of that, the old building there that's being used for childcare right now. So they would want an easement over the sidewalk in favor of the city for sidewalk purposes, and that would eventually be part, one of the documents as part of the site plan approval. Building materials, basically this will match, the existing structures out there. There's not a whole lot of stuff to really look at, but it's got different things that can go into that. But the design here, I think there's on your desk shows some of the design work for this as well. So I don't see any issues with the building materials from matching from their, from the other structure that's existing. So we should be all right there. There is a landscaping plan that was submitted as well. That landscaping plan does show a total of 7 additional overstory or deciduous trees along that west property line of where that single family house is. The yellow line up on the screen right now shows the existing parcel, but them trees would actually be on the single family parcel along that west property line right there. So those would be added as part of the construction. Utilities, there's water and sewer currently serving the property, and that would just be continued in through this new structure since it's an addition to the current facility. Engineering review, there are some comments from Bolton Mink. Basically, there's 5 of them listed on page 7. I'll just read through them quick. Disturbance is less than 1 acre, therefore an NPDS permit is not required, which is through the MPCA. They may be required to obtain a Carver County Watershed Management Organization permit, so that'll be up to something that they'll have to look into before they can start construction and verify they can satisfy Carver County. Perimeter erosion control shall be installed by the contractor, inspected by the city prior to any work. The applicant shall consider extending the swale west toward the pond. Appears that the proposed grading will direct runoff toward the existing mulch playground, and the swale should be reviewed by the prior to restoration, ensure no runoff is directed at neighboring properties. And on the grading plan, that's what they're talking about. There's kind of some regrade to kind of get water from that single-family parcel up and around and out to that pond that's up in the northwest area of that area. That's kind of the stormwater pond that's partially owned by the city, partially used for all these different properties. If one note I did want to make that we discussed, if off-street parking was to be added, for instance, off Second Street, we'd have to relook at some of that stormwater management. Obviously, that would be paved. We'd have to make sure all that area is directed to where it needs to be. It did look like that even if they added a parking lot down there, they'd still be under 1 acre of disturbance, which would keep them under the minimum for the MPCA for the NPDS permit. Carver County Review did get an email and talked to them. Basically, they had some general comments. I think the email came after this report, but let me just get my comments out here quick. All right, so there was a letter that was sent on October 28th, and then there's some additional questions regarding a temporary construction entrance coming off the north side of the existing building off Blue Jay Avenue, which is a county road. It sounds like we'll move the temporary access down to Second to come off where that existing single-family house is. No big deal there. And these comments that were sent out will need to be satisfied as part of their site plan approval. So we'll have that. And then miscellaneous provisions, like signage and lighting and things like that are all kind of standard stuff that they have to meet all the requirements of the ordinance. So with that said, there's actually 4 separate agenda items. There's a comprehensive plan amendment, which has some conditions there, one being a submittal to the Met Council, which I've already been in contact with. One is the rezoning. There's 2 conditions. The variance has a total of 3 conditions, a big one being the site plan approval, and then that site plan review has a total of 18 conditions, but with the new email that we got here today about the temporary construction access, I would suggest adding 19th condition to move that temp construction access to Second Street Northwest. So that being said, I know we got the 3 separate public hearings, but I can take any questions or we can just open it up for public comment. I know the applicant's here obviously for discussion as well, so. Yes.
Go over that sidewalk thing again on Second Street.
Yeah, so
Parking, are they gonna take parking away or?
no, so if you zoom in, you can see where there's like a red truck and a car there. Here, pull it back this way so we can get over to the intersection. There we go. You see the sidewalk comes across Blue Jay, and you can see it kind of coming across the north side of that parking area. That extends into the single-family lot. You can just kind of see it under that one tree right in that area. And if you go over to the west, you can see parking in Sunset Meadows stops right there at the property line, and it's right along the edge of Second Street Northwest. So the plan is this sidewalk would be extended to the west property line once that house is removed. Then there's just one little gap where them 2 houses are, and at some point in time, a sidewalk would be expected to be installed in that area. Now, there's no curb and gutter along this section of the street either. So how that's done, I know, there's some elevation things to look at and different things like that to make sure drainage. The street actually sits higher than those single-family houses right now. So that all needs to be, determined and looked at. But the plan would be that sidewalk would just kind of wrap down to the blacktop and then run to the west property line as part of this construction.
Not necessarily be straight, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll just have kind of like a little curve or jog probably in it, or, and like I said, I don't know if that exact alignments have been 100% determined yet.
Area you're talking about?
The single family home. Well, we're not extended across those houses right now. That'd be a future project. We're just getting to that property line.
Oh. So they're still gonna be up, they're still gonna have their parking area where the Zion property is right now, where they have parking by that sidewalk now, that's still gonna be the same?
Yeah, no, that's not being touched. It's just on the single family lot where that would be extended to the west.
So extending it on the next lot, they'll actually have more parking at that.
I don't know if that's the plan or not. We don't have a,
That would be a possibility of the extended sidewalk causing more parking on that frontage of that.
it could be a possibility, but there are some power poles there too. That would be in the way for parking. So you can't, they'd have to either be moved or, I don't know if the goal is to move those power poles. So,
It's been done before.
yeah.
That's all I
Any other questions, comments? Looking for a motion to close the public hearing?
Would you guys, before we do that, do you guys have anything to say or?
Well, I was just gonna, since you sort of brought it up, what is the possibility or the process of sort of extending that perpendicular parking along Second Street to the edge of that property? And that would take care of the 3 additional parking spaces required.
I mean, that's something that can be looked at, but I believe there's 2 poles there, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I think one's just to the left of where those 2 cars are parked. Yeah,
Utility poles?
yeah, power line poles.
But I think the lots, the 50-foot lots, are playing more for 3 or 4 parking spaces.
Yeah,
Seemed like a fairly seamless way to make that happen.
yeah. So the question is, and I guess we'd have to talk about this, the city engineer would have to be the one that would officially comment, but, with the additional 5 feet of right of way being dedicated, those parking stalls, you can see how they're already hanging into the right of way, so they're not technically off-street parking stalls. So who maintains that section of the roadway is going to be something that has to be determined.
But we can work with that. I'm sure we can come up with something that would work good.
Yeah,
If not, the intention is probably, if we don't get a variance, to remove them, to replace, put the parking where that existing single-family house is. That's already included in the disturbed area.
Yep.
So that would not, cause any headache.
It would be just a matter of a time factor, wouldn't it, or not?
Probably would be how quickly, it would work, how long it takes to get there.
yeah, and I think just we'll, probably just have a conversation
Sure, yeah.
and they can give you the feedback on what works and what doesn't work on that street there.
So,
Give me a motion.
I moved, close the meeting, open the public forum.
Okay.
Public hearing.
You have a motion to close the public hearing? Is that what you said?
We haven't opened.
But yeah,
I thought we did right away when I spoke up. Rewind the tape. I thought I opened the public hearing. This is where, okay. Motion's been made to open the public hearing. I thought I opened it. I'm sorry. I did?
no, I started talking before it was open. I think we have to have a motion and a second to open it, so.
All in favor, say aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We just talked about this.
Any additional comments?
As far as the county, from what I've been told, the county just required an affidavit from Zion, that's the legal name that is going to be put on the 3 properties. That's all. They were found providing it. They had no question, no problem with that. They just needed to know the legal name, which we provided to them.
So has it been officially combined or?
Well, I think just we're waiting for this to be done here.
Okay.
But all they needed was an affidavit certifying or showing the proper name be put on the property.
So that little property to the south of the church down there, that'll be combined as well then, that one? All right.
So I got a question about wording. Why are you using two different wordings in regards to, for instance, public, institutional and public quasi?
So one's zoning and one is a future land
Yeah, but
use.
why are you using that term? I mean, it actually comes out to be the same, and why isn't it both
Because the
public?
comprehensive plan amendments regarding the future land use map that was approved by the Met Council. So the district or the future land use for the school and church is public and quasi-public, same as city hall and other, city-owned properties around the town.
Quasi means the same thing as the terminology of.
That's just the terminology that the Met Council uses. We're just, I don't know, I guess you could call and ask what they come up with, but, and then the rezone, the public institutional is actually our zoning district. They're two different maps that we're talking about, so.
I thought we discussed that during the public hearing, but.
They mean the same.
So that's why it's so confusing. Every time it changes. So we have the
Yeah,
public hearing after.
I don't know.
stuff, then we open it.
Red tape.
I'm just confused.
So it goes.
Every time it's different. I'm trying to get it straight. Are we open? Are we closed? What do we got? So we want to close it or we want to open it or what do we got here?
Public hearing's open right now, so we have to close it, and then we have two more that you might as well just.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to close it?
Yeah, and then we could do all the action items at the end.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yep, and then there's two more.
Okay,
Open the second.
number 5.
And I think they could probably open them together. I've done that before,
Yeah,
because,
it's all on the same subject.
yep.
Okay,
Officially open the last two together.
okay. Are we gonna discuss before I open it, or are we just gonna open it?
It's all, we've kind of had that discussion, but
Okay, well, yours up. I'm gonna open the public hearing for number 5 and 6, which is rezoning of property at 209 Second Street Northwest on property fronting Blue Jay Avenue from R1 Low Density Residential District to PI Public Institutional District. That's one hearing. And the second one is variance to reduce the required off-street parking 3 additional spaces for a total reduction of 66 spaces from the required 70 off-street parking spaces to 4 off-street parking spaces. Public hearing is now open. Discussion from the board. Anything out there? I think we touched about it already.
So you wouldn't need the parking variance if you were able to put the parking spots on Second Street, is that correct?
Probably not.
well, it's off-street parking, so we'd have to have a determination. Are them considered off-street and who's maintaining them? If the city's actually maintaining those because they're in the public right of way, they wouldn't technically qualify. They technically need to be on the property, and there's a setback on the property for where the off-street parking can be per the zoning code. So those stalls right there, because one of the conditions is to dedicate an additional 5 feet of right of way, which would move that property line even further north, basically is in the public right of way.
Can you scan to the right and see where that, the parking is? If that looks like it's in line, because that's kind of the same setup.
Yeah, you see how the right of way there is much higher up and it's all within the public right of way. The property line is the street's wider over there than it is in this location.
But the property is,
I was seeing it on the same line.
property is the same distance, but the utilization of the property is different.
Now, the right of way over to the east of Blue Jay is wider than it is on west.
So the street is narrower here?
Yes, that's why city engineer wants to require the additional right of way dedication as part of the
Okay.
site.
Oh, to move it.
So
Yeah, property.
So the sidewalk that's there, is that in the right of way?
Over which, when you say there, where's there? On the east or the west side?
Well, where is the property line or the city right of way now? Down further?
Try to give you a helpful blue
Yeah.
line there.
Right here, this is the property line over here.
Yeah, I
This
understand
is the
that.
property line right there.
Okay,
This is the sidewalk.
okay, so actually, city property is being used for parking right now.
Yeah, but that's
over
not-
here,
That's
over
not
here.
dedicated for anybody.
Over here, it
specific.
will, it is.
Here,
That's city property or it's not?
this is owned by the church right
Oh,
here.
okay,
So this is the line that cuts right through where those cars are, right in the
Yeah.
middle of them. So
okay.
we're gonna move this line up north 5 feet and then take an easement all the way to the back side of this sidewalk. So there's access for the city for maintenance and things like that. So when you move that up, this technically isn't off-street parking.
Yeah,
This-
so
this
it
is not-
doesn't, it won't belong to the church anymore, or the Zion anymore.
Well, they already don't own half of it right now. That line cuts right through the middle of those parking stalls. You can see it cuts right through those two vehicles.
Yes, but what you're saying, you want to get it straight with the other side.
Right,
You want to,
correct.
So they're gonna be losing property.
To make the right-of-way sufficient or meet city criteria. And it's actually gonna line up with Sunset Meadows, which isn't as wide as this.
So if they wanna park like they have been parking, they have to go further north yet.
Correct. If they want it to be considered technically off-street parking, this would just be on-street parking that anyone can use.
Understand that?
What's the difference if you park this way and your car sticks out, what the cars would be parking along there? It's at the same time.
Because it's not on your property, it's on city right-of-way. So it's not considered off-street parking. So some other business could have a event that brings in 1,000 people and they're all parked there and you have no right to kick them off of those parking stalls.
I think what he's asking is if you went from perpendicular to parallel parking as is.
Still gonna make the same, gonna be out in the street, the same distance.
But parallel parking isn't off-street parking. That doesn't count towards your off-street parking. So if you go back to 2012, there was you guys put together, I think I put it in the report, a layout, maybe it's not in here, that showed all the off-street parking that was out there and all the on-street parking. And it was counting stalls in the area, like 107 stalls, but a lot of that was just parking on the street that technically isn't specified just for the church or the school. Anyone can use that at any time. And when you have on-street parking, anyone can use that. And you can't stop them from using that. Off-street parking is private parking that you can specifically say is only for people using the church or the school. And that's what the zoning code is based on. So to have off-street parking, it has to be on your property, not on the street. That's the difference. And the city council in the variance last time took into consideration all the street parking as part of the approval of that variance.
And John, you're saying even these now are not off-street parking? even
No.
the half. So it's not like,
Yeah,
even with that moving up and the city owning the whole thing, we're not losing any off-street parking because it doesn't exist yet.
yeah, and I don't know if there's an arrow. Point at that right there. So right where that little shed is and there's a little driveway, they were counting that as 4 off-street stalls. That was the only off-street parking you have, other than the stuff south of Blue Jay where your parking lot is, but by the church. But that's across the street.
That was a stretch.
So they're actually,
Yeah.
they're gonna surrender that too, besides,
What do you mean surrender it?
where those 2 cars are. If you wanna push that back, that can't be considered off-street parking.
That's not going in the right of way though. It's not going back that far.
The thrust is it's not off-street parking now.
But they're asking for that to be off-street parking, right?
Who is? Nobody is.
Nobody is?
No,
Okay.
Okay, yeah, there was.
No,
yeah.
we're not asking for any kind of parking change up there. That's 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said before that it might not be immediate. I mean, it's,
No, we're not asking for any change there.
yeah,
Or-
you're looking for parking spots.
Right, and also, I guess the thing that comes into play too is the church parking lot is basically not used during school days. I mean, unless there's a funeral, but otherwise, so for 98% of the time, the church parking lot is actually available for off-street parking for school.
And that would,
But they have been parking along the street
Right.
instead. I mean, they could be parking in the church parking lot.
and technically, because that's on the other side of the street, it's not officially that, but it was taken into consideration by the council in 2012 to allow that.
So if it was right now it's not one property, right? But if it was one property, then it would be
Well, the church,
considered to be off-street parking
the
for.
church in that parking area is part of the same parcel of the, if you zoom it out and click on it, and then click on it, and you'll see it goes to both sides of the street.
Working on it. Well, would help if I went to the right tool here. There.
See how that's one parcel right there. So they're actually combined, even though they're on the,
So if they're combined, why wouldn't that be considered?
because it's on the
Parking.
opposite side, it's on the opposite side of the street. You have to cross the street,
Yeah.
which you can do, but per the ordinance, that's something that's not allowed. It's considered technically off-site parking then versus off-street parking.
So it depends then on a patrol officer that would be driving around in regards to whether you should judge whether they could park there or not.
Well, that would have nothing to do with it. That's their parking lot. They can have whoever parks there as they want. But by the ordinance, that doesn't count for the property on the north side, even though it's one parcel. And now they're gonna combine all three parcels. Click on the one to the south down there, this little.
So then the only option they got would be to go deeper north into that property to have off-street parking?
Well, where that house is being removed, there's all sorts of room right there.
Yeah, but I mean, even if there was frontage on the rest of the remaining of the property,
I'm not following what you're
there
saying.
wouldn't be a sidewalk.
Well, it would just be a driveway into the parking lot. The sidewalk would come up and to the, it'd be a driveway off a Second, and then the sidewalk would cross that driveway.
Where the sidewalk is now, to get off-street parking, they would have to go north of that sidewalk.
Yes, correct.
And if the sidewalk wasn't there, then it would be traffic parking into the property of the Zion. You want to have a sidewalk go there.
The sidewalks, one of the conditions
Well,
extend
because they
that.
wanna Hook up to,
Yeah, that's gonna be extended, and there's gonna be an easement required over that. So that's off-street parking would have to go north of that easement in that sidewalk area to be officially off-street parking.
so until the sidewalk is put in.
Well, that's gonna be required as part of this construction. To extend that little bit to the west. That's one of the conditions in the site plan approval.
So then they're gonna be losing all their parking.
What was that? In older areas, the downtown areas like this, or older, yes, they do typically have it on both sides. And you can see their sidewalk on the north side of Second in Sunset Meadows. And that's the connection we're trying to make, is to connect that sidewalk back across these three properties from a pedestrian standpoint.
So is there a sidewalk all the way around Sunset Meadows, right? Is this all sidewalk here?
No, I can't.
Is this sidewalk?
Yeah, that's sidewalk right there.
This is not?
That is sidewalk as well, yes. No, not wrapping around up there. That's why I was using most.
Yeah, I need to get a mouse.
Yeah,
So you can see it wraps and then wraps to the north there.
yeah, wraps around the north side, not on the inside.
So this is not a sidewalk now?
Yes, that is a sidewalk.
Yep.
Yes. And there's a trail that cuts back in the northwest corner of Sunset Meadows.
Is this a sidewalk?
I believe that is
But not here?
correct. Not there, not as you go on the south side of going into Sunset Meadows, there is not.
It does make sense to connect the two sidewalks, the two properties worth.
Once you
And
get
you're
east of
talking-
that, I was gonna say, once you get east of that north-south, the north road going into there, it becomes likely a minor collector, and that's why you're gonna have sidewalks on both sides. Is because now you're a busy enough road where you don't expect pedestrians to cross to walk on the sidewalk. Downtown is busy.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that part of this, we're just talking about extending the sidewalk, not that parking strip.
Yeah, the only,
That would be later by the city.
or, yeah, we're not requiring that parking strip right now, just the sidewalk, what is that, 40, 50 feet there, if that, 30 feet?
It's half the lot.
Yeah, exactly. At some point in time, the city would have to look at extending that to make that connection now. That's out of my control,
It
but
sounded to me like it was gonna be done right now, but all it's gonna be done is
just in their property. We can't require them to put sidewalk in somebody else's property.
So are they gonna keep the parking they got now for a period of time or not?
Which parking, the stuff off the street?
The parking, that existing parking.
Yeah, nobody's touching that right now. That's staying exactly as is.
So then the extra parking spaces do it, that part does exist. Yeah. We have to, that is the discussion. There's nothing that can be done other than that. Other than what the variance is supposed to be.
Well, their variance is asking just another 3 off-street parking spaces off on the variance. Is that what?
It has to be on their property.
Yeah. Normal, what you can like a normal, for instance, like when the Mayor Lutheran did their thing, they put a big new parking area in up on that north kind of west side there. And that was all off-street parking, and they put it back on their property, and they had an entrance coming in, and it wrapped around the building and stuff. So in a case like this, that house is getting removed. And I'll just show everybody right here. This house.
Yeah, I know, but by extending the sidewalk isn't gonna give them any more
But you
parking.
can have a sidewalk with a driveway coming in and have parking right here where that house is. You
Yeah,
can
I
have a
know.
parking lot
I
right
know.
there.
But that's gonna be in the future. Right?
That's up to
That-
you
that's
guys
your
to make
fu-
that
that's-
decision.
Well,
That's,
that's the decision we're talking about.
That's the variance that we're asking right now tonight.
Parking stalls today.
those few.
Or do we need-
Yeah. You have a variance, they have a variance to get rid of, 63 stalls right now. That's already currently in place. This addition requires 3 more, so they have to technically up.
For a variance for 3 more stalls.
Yes, that's the decision that needs to be made.
Now we can always, if the congregation decides they need a little more parking, we can always put it in. But right now, we're looking for the variance, just to get the variance for 3 stalls.
Get going.
So we get going.
So if you recommend approval of the variance, they do not need off-street parking.
Yeah, they don't ever have to put in if they don't want to.
But there's a chance that could happen because the other house, Christ Corner here, is in dire need of repair. And we can't keep spending money on that, so that may go too. So,
You're talking about the old teach reach.
so.
I mean, that's gonna go regardless of, you're gonna put a structure there anyway, aren't you?
Not there.
Not there?
Not right now.
Not immediate.
No, but
In the future, that would be.
in your future plan, master plan or whatever, I know, but parking will still be involved.
Probably a little bit between now and then, we'll take these
Yeah.
options.
Well, we're not gonna worry about it.
I'm not gonna say.
Okay.
Well, I think if you get a variance, you'll be 20 years down the road before you put parking where that house is, I guess. Because it's gonna be $200,000 parking lot as of today's money.
I believe our master plan is very fluid, as Laura will attest to. It's very fluid. It changes every day.
I think we all got a master plan.
So
Changes.
if we do this variance now, is that gonna be a lifetime variance?
Yeah,
Yes. It'd be a lifetime variance. They would never have to do it until they do some additional addition in the future.
Oh, okay.
Then you could come back and see where
It is
things,
Subject to change in.
well, when they add on more building, it's gonna require more off-street parking at that point.
In the future, our master plan shows addressing the whole parking issue.
I saw it.
Yes. Yeah. By various means.
They're gonna open someday the next house.
And being that this is not technically in the downtown area, but it's kind of adjacent to it, you know, we've got all sorts of parking things going on in the downtown area too, and variance has been given for that before. So this is kind of a similar, you know, situation.
If the variance were denied and you were to have to put in 3 spots on the lot that you're clearing, would that, I know it'd be incurring the cost now versus later, but would it fit into your fluid master plan? Or would it be pretty much just a loss and it would have to be reconfigured or redone when it comes time?
Pretty much lost it.
It would just be making do.
Does anybody understand that that sidewalk that's previously off the county road going west, that's there? If you tear that out and move it a little north and get your parking spots in, instead of adding the same distance, solving that problem of sticking out in the roadway or being all on off-street parking? I mean, would you go all the way back and do that, or would you just, I mean, like John said, if you wanted to get all off-street parking, you would move that sidewalk north, those, you still have a sidewalk, but you get your parking stalls in more. Do I understand that, or?
I don't think I mean, it would technically look at it, but when you have a parking lot, there's setback requirements for off-street parking.
Setback beyond the
Yeah.
right of way.
So that's what I'm saying, you know, the additional into that 50-foot lot, would you put the sidewalk where it is now, or would you do it vice versa to make it all what you would want in the future, where you'd want it all off?
I think what you do is you work with what's there with some sort of shared agreement with the city, because it's going
Okay,
to take that, move it further north. You know, the roadway doesn't necessarily need to be wider itself, and that's what you'd be doing, is making the roadway
yeah,
wider.
we were talking about the parking stalls doing this, but yeah, that's fine.
But yeah,
You said it wasn't exactly right, but yeah, then, go ahead.
I mean, quite honestly, right now, I guess we have to use with the variance, because it would not force us into doing something that needed change soon.
Mhm.
So we probably be more happy, you know, look down the road if something needs change, that we can work on it then, but for now, the variance, you know. Best way for us to meet our master plan is stuff to.
yeah, and if you approve the variance, all that could just remain exactly as it is. It don't need to be touched right now. No cost to them at all at this point. Just leave it alone, and
Except for extending the sidewalk west.
except for the sidewalk extended and the house gets removed, correct? And that driveway would go away, basically.
So would that sidewalk kind of take a swerve out to the south?
Could, I know when I talked to the city engineer, they said that's possible. You could start curving at the south, because eventually it's got a curve to match.
So maybe it takes up one parking stall on the end, but then you gain 4 of them out of that 50?
Yeah, I think you'd have to look
That's what
at,
we're- So we're talking?
I think what needs to be done is you gotta look at where the power pole is, look if there's any trees in the way, and, you know, then plan for the future lots, because when you cross there, you don't want to stub it in right to a big, 40-inch tree either. You want to make sure it's on one side or the other. So I think that exact location needs to be determined yet. That's something that can be done, so.
So how bad you want the parking, I guess? You want the tree or the pole or whatever, the parking spot, so I mean,
Well,
whatever.
there's trees on the neighboring property that, we don't want to have to tear one down because the sidewalk went right into it. We can put it in a spot where you don't affect the tree.
So is anybody keeping track to where we're closed or open, and we need a motion to close, or?
We're open still.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion has been made and second to close both public hearings. Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So now we discuss among us if we want to do the variance, is that what the deal is?
Well, there's four action items to take, I guess, so it's up to you guys how you want to handle that.
You want to call out the action items, John?
Want me to read them off?
Sure.
Here's my agenda here. Find my agenda quick.
Page 10.
There we go. So the first one's a comprehensive plan amendment, and the second one is a rezoning, the third one's the variance for the off-street parking, and the fourth one's a site plan review. And all those would then go to the city council for final action at their next meeting. So the comprehensive plan amendment, wanted to read them off the edge here. Too many papers here.
Right here?
Yeah, there we go. Is changing the future land use designation on the future land use map from medium density residential to public and quasi-public, and it's actually two parcels, just so I'm aware. The single family house and that small parking lot area, just to be that, make it all consistent. Is everyone aware of that parking lot area is, that little parcel? All right. And the second one is the rezoning, and that's of the same properties, changing from R1 low density residential to public institutional. Those two kind of go hand in hand. The variance is to reduce the off-street parking requirement, 3 additional spaces, so their total variance would be for 66 off-street spaces from the required 70, because there is those 4 where that little shed, and driveway area is. There is additional off-street parking to the south, but since that's across the street, it technically doesn't apply, even though it can be used and taken in consideration. The last one is the site plan review, which was not a public hearing, but that just basically approves the layout, the setbacks, building materials, landscaping, things like that. I didn't fail to mention before, but all the setbacks are being met, all the lot coverage is met. There's no issues with any of that stuff. So those would be the 4 action items.
Want to vote on one at a time?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment, subject to conditions.
Second. Oops, sorry.
I'll second.
Motion's been made in second to the comp plan amendment changes. Any more discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, rezoning of property.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning, subject to conditions.
Motion's been made in second to rezoning of property at 209. Any more discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then we have the variance.
Any discussion on the variance beyond what we've already had? Looking at the prepared considerations for the variance on page 6, I don't think these additional 3 spots being required for an expansion of the school changes the decision. The rationale behind the decision to grant the variance, which allowed 67 spaces in the first place, minimal change, and I don't think at that time, had they needed to make a variance for 70 spots, that they would have changed their rationale based on these. So I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the variance subject to condition.
I'll second it. I agree.
Motion's been made in second to accept the variance. Any discussion? I know you said that, but all in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that should be it. We got site plan review, which is a checklist of items.
Site plan needs a motion too.
Okay. Yes, it does.
Okay, well, I guess I'll recommend.
You're 4 for
I'll
4.
make a motion to
baby.
recommend the approval of the site plan review, subject to conditions.
Second.
Motion's made in second to accept site plan review any other discussions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank
All
you.
right, so the next step is this will go to city council next Monday, right?
Yeah.
No, I got a handout.
2 Mondays?
If you want
Next meeting is Tuesday, December 6th.
a handout.
Monday this week was.
Oh,
Gotcha. And then,
2 Mondays, I guess.
we got commissioners report, which Les will be having some interest for.
After the election.
Yeah, 14th. 14th. That's right, it's first of the month today, isn't
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
it? An extra week off.
Yeah.
It's all right to have an ID, huh? Les just brought this up. Les is that creative. He can do that. He's gonna dig that in at midnight and put them there. Okay, Les?
What?
You wanna tell the group all about what you got there?
Get a handout or not?
Well, yeah, you wanna explain it or?
Well, it's kind of self-explanatory. It's.
Okay, good enough.
We look at in this,
Number 10?
in this situation,
Jerk me like this. Oh, wow.
something to. An option.
Thank you.
Yep, I got it.
Got one.
I guess I don't need to do any explanation on it. It's just something that maybe could be looked at, because in reality, the city could be using that parking area too for some things that go on Second Street during the summer. Because it does involve parking on Main Street or Ash Avenue in that regards, where business places are basically giving up their parking spots for those type of, every other week? Like the car show, for instance.
It's 8 times a year.
So I think both the city and the church probably could benefit by the use of that area, which is now not being used really for anything. And I talked to the maintenance, Kyle, maintenance man in town. And there wasn't anything there that he could see on his maps that would involve a lot of money to move things or change things in regards to public works. So
I don't think there's anything.
it's just something that I'm just throwing out at. Doesn't have to be done today, tomorrow, or next year, or whatever. I mean, it's being they put that parking lot on the north end of the that lot for just that pad, basically, but it's also used for other business use or activities that's put on by the city, which would be this parking lot, existing parking lot. So, I mean, we're kind of shy of parking all around town in the first place. And even this last weekend, activity at the community center, and cars were parked way down to the curve down there, which, in my opinion, even our own parking lot isn't big enough to handle certain situations. So I think we got to start looking at parking all the way around, period. Other than other entities.
The only comment I'll say is Blue Jay is technically a county road. So to allow that same type of parking where you come in and then have to back out, would have to be approved by the county, and I do not know if they would approve that on a county road.
Well, that's a question.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean you don't want to pursue it.
Yeah, it'd be something we could get a quick answer out of, I would think. I know in the case of the school, they had a temporary construction access to the north of their building, and they wanted them just to move that off, even though it was temporary while construction was going on. Didn't even want that on the county road.
Well, I could see that. That'd be big equipment running around there. I mean, that's different.
What part of this block is city property versus?
The whole block
that
is,
whole-
yeah.
What did we dig
Used
up
to be
there
a
last
park.
year?
What did what?
We dug something up there last year. Was it a wellhead or a
I'm not sure. I
well?
guess.
What?
We dug something up in the park, like in between the blue and the building.
Yeah, that's a well.
It's a, yeah, but it was outside. It's a well?
It's exposed between the two,
Okay.
between the building and that, I guess you call it basketball court.
Yeah, it's just basketball.
So there, that, actually, the old well was there too, but did they pull the old well, Jerry? I think, huh? The cap it or something, but
Yeah, there's something, yeah,
they replaced the well, but the replacement is right next to it, isn't
I
it?
think so, yeah.
And then there's the one out here.
Right.
So it's a backup. So other than that, right along that strip there where I have the proposed joint parking area, there's nothing there except you see a little white dot there?
Yeah.
That's a vent for the discharge for the water, and that's a simple move if it has to be even moved.
Okay.
So nothing else was along there, and if there was, it was stuff that was abandoned. So, I don't, I mean, I'm just looking at more space for everybody. Even, I mean, Main Street there, if you want to consider Ash Avenue, Main Street, that parking on that is congested to the point where
On a nice Saturday
they're
afternoon.
almost fighting for parking spots. I mean,
And they made it skinnier.
yeah, yeah, so, and that's parallel parking on top of it, so there isn't really that many parking spots. And we've always had that issue. And that, you know, Waconia had to deal with that years back too. They had the same problems we do here. I mean, they were a growing city, and they had to tear down buildings to make parking lots. It cost a lot of money, but maybe we can do it more economically. In this particular area, there's nothing there.
John, have you ever heard the county approving something like this?
Not really, no. That's why I'm a little worried that they
It'd
would,
be more like backing onto a state road is what you look at.
well, they don't like any backing out on any other road.
Well, the county's kind of on the same.
Yeah, county's the same way. And even city roads, you don't like it, but, you know, in these downtown areas, you do see that, you know, either angled in or at a 45 or at a 90 like that, but like I said, anything like this would have to be approved by the county, and I can send this over to their county, and just see what they have to say in just general terms and throw in front of them.
Les, what do you estimate that, the length of that is 100 feet or so?
I just took the dimensions off of the one on the end, and I just extended it. It's not, you know, there is no real dimension there as far as how long, it's just how much can you utilize and use.
Yeah, but I mean, just if it's 100 feet, is it 10 spaces?
Well, the block is 300 feet long.
300 feet, okay, so maybe
So-
200, 250, 225.
That's perpendicular, at least one.
Yeah, you're looking at 10 feet wide for a space, and if you got 200 feet, that'd be 20 stalls.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
20 feet deep.
20 by,
Well, in that case, maybe more if they, you know, you don't want to be sticking out the back too far, but like I say, they're parking parallel all the way along the street now.
Which is another 8 feet.
How many cars is
7 feet.
parking along there right now on one side?
Maybe during the day,
Yeah, there's not 20. You can't be 20
it's not 20, that's
No.
actually 10, 12,
parallel.
yeah, parallel.
So you'd be,
a typical length is 20 feet and the width is 10. So if you've got 10 or 12 there, you could probably get 20, 24 perpendicular off the street. Something like that.
Something like that. 200 by, that's 200 by 20 right there.
So if you say parallel parking, there must be, I mean, if you can park a trailer there, a snowmobile trailer, that'd be 8 feet, right? Is there 8 feet allowed for parallel parking alongside there?
how about perpendicular parking?
I think parallel is this, isn't it?
Parallel to the curb. Yeah, typically, I mean, if you got a trailer and there's nobody there, you can just park, but.
I know, all I'm saying is, do they design them so they're like 8 feet? Like I could pull up in front of the post office with an 8 foot wide
Typical
trailer,
stall is 20
wide.
20 long by 10 wide.
Okay. Okay, so you're telling me they're 10 feet from the curb to the roadway?
That's a typical stall. I don't know
Okay,
what's there.
so anyways, do you take that 10 feet and use that to go the 20 feet perpendicular?
No.
You go off that. So you still have another 10 feet there where it gives you room to back up.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're not gonna split the
I
difference
mean,
with,
there's no right or wrong. I mean, it could be 10, you could push, I mean, it's all, everything can be designed a little differently depending on what you want to do. So,
well, I'm just saying with the back ends of the cars that are parking in this spot line up with the cars that are still parallel. You know what I'm saying? So then
I
you'd
know what
only,
you're saying. I guess
you'd only
it's-
dig in 10, 15 feet versus 20 feet or
I
whatever.
guess that's what, up to the design and how you want to design.
So it is acceptable.
I mean, you could do it. Now, that's not ideal, but you could, I guess, yeah.
That's what I'm wondering,
Up to
what
the
is
council to make a
normally
final
done.
Decision on that, how they
Yeah.
want to design it.
You're talking parallel post to perpendicular, is that what?
I'm talking, do you use what's already used for parallel?
Yeah.
Would you use that in your
And go in-
addition
and
to what's
go
in,
another
cutting in?
10?
Huh?
And go in another 10 is what?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or do you,
But you can go in 20.
I know, I'm just saying, do you do that or do you save it? Or, you know,
This
do you-
sounds like a wonderful discussion for a future meeting where it's on the agenda. If I may,
you may.
we get the engineer involved, draft up a little something and
Well, there's a potential of doubling your parking is what it comes down to.
I think the first thing is we just go to the county and see what they're willing to do before you even get into.
Well, even if it's in another spot of town, you know, that's all I'm asking. Do you bring it in that much more? Or do you let the butt stick out where the parallel cars would have been on the line? Or do you use the white line or do you go in the whole thing? That's all I was asking, what usually is done. I might not be asking it right.
Ideally, you'd like to push them in all the way and not use that. That's what
Okay.
you want.
That's the question I asked.
But it's not that you have to do that.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is that 1 and 2? Motion's made and second to adjourn. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Make us hungry for the job. Gotta blame it on somebody.